For those who are here, welcome to our Careers in Law panel. I'm Sunny. I'm the CEO of StrivePath, and with us we have a fantastic panel of lawyers with us who are all incredibly lawyers and actually a recruiter in law. And so we're going to present a number of different perspectives for those who are considering a career in law. So we're gonna budget, I'd say 50 minutes just to be, I know it's late on a Thursday, so let's just be efficient with time. So for those who don't know who we are, uh, we're StrivePath. StrivePath is all about empowering students and families with personalized academic and college advising, market insights, and community resources. And our whole objective is to actually ensure holistic development and to focus more on the process versus the outcome. We believe that by learning more about our students and by supporting who they are, we get happier students, less stressed families, and actually better admission outcomes. So that's us. We have now 6 offices across the Bay Area, and this has been the best job I've ever had. And then lastly, our differentiation, you guys can read this on the screen, but we are focused on the student, not the college. We are very, very data driven. I'm saying this as someone who actually started and ran a data company. We are integrated in our community, and we know our schools. And we also believe that in-person connection with one consultant versus many remotely just leads to better outcomes, leads to more trust. And so it's been a very rewarding journey for me. Now, with that all being said, more excitingly, we have a fantastic panel. So we'll actually go ahead and start with some bios. So with that, Molly, why don't you kick us off? So let's learn. So tell us about yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is me. I'm Molly. I'm a litigator at Oric in San Francisco. I litigate in federal and state courts all around the country. I mostly represent public companies and their officers and directors when they're sued by shareholders or facing shareholder disputes, though I also litigate more traditional business disputes and complex business litigation. I have a background in more criminal law and the Federal Corrupt Practices Act, but today mostly focus on securities enforcement and securities litigation.
So that's going from Molly and Doris. Nice to meet you. So please tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Sunny. So my name is Doris Chen. I'm an in-house attorney. I'll just put it this way. In-house attorneys don't get to be in movies or TV shows. We are not the kind of lawyers that go to court. So from the outside, it does not seem like what we do is, that dramatic. But I do come from a science background, and I actually didn't think about going to law school until the last year of my until I was about to graduate college. So I liked writing, and I liked science, and I wanted to do something where I could use both. So right after college, I had an internship at Roche Biosciences, which is a biotech company. It was in Palo Alto, but now they're in San Francisco and the East Bay. Anyway, yeah, I've been in biotech for about 12 years now. I'm currently at BioMarin Pharmaceuticals, which is in San Rafael. They specialize in genetic disease treatment. Yeah, currently at BioMarin. So what I do is I'm in the legal department, and currently just working on projects to update. Currently we're updating templates for contracts that we contracts where we engage other service providers or other institutions when we're interacting with them. So that's oh yeah, and I went to Santa Clara Law School, and I graduated from UCLA in physiological sciences.
Awesome. Well, Doris, welcome. We are thrilled to have you. Okay, next, Emily.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Pissinger, and I work at Paul Hastings. I get the opportunity to go to different law schools and have the law students meet with our attorneys, develop conversations that lead to recruiting efforts. The funnest part about my job is that the recruiting I do takes place, but a year later is when all the summer interns come to San Francisco and get to be at Paul Hastings, and I help run that program. And I absolutely love running the summer program. It's fantastic to see everyone's so nervous on the first day, imposter syndrome, like totally like bright lights ahead. And then on the last day of the summer program, the confidence that you see everyone really just build is phenomenal. And then a year later, everyone becomes an incoming associate. So really enjoy my job. And I'll give everyone a fun fact that Sunny and we both have Bernedoodle dogs.
That actually is how we met. Yeah, that was awesome. And I think what's also really neat what's also really neat so far is, I mean, so far across Molly, Doris, and Emily, we already have 3 very diverse perspectives, right, for us to learn from. So that's really exciting. And now, so Emily, we are thrilled to have you. And now let us end on a very strong note. Stephen, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, no, hi. So I am a white collar civil and criminal defense lawyer and trial lawyer based in Southern California. I started my career fresh out of law school, which is pretty rare, at the Securities and Exchange Commission in the enforcement division. So I pretty much my whole career has been SEC involved, because from there I went to the Department of Justice as an assistant U.S. attorney, doing, again, white collar cases, securities fraud, corporate fraud, accounting fraud, all kinds, whatever investment related is pretty much what I've done my whole career. And the last now 5+ years, I've been on the defense side, defending people, individuals, companies against the SEC and the Department of Justice. A lot of the cases I work on are very high profile. I used to work with Molly at Oric, and we were defending one of the 2 defendants in the Theranos scandal up in the Bay Area. So we've been through the ringer on cases together in the past.
Awesome. Well, we are thrilled to have you. So we have some big heavy hitters here. And so now let's quickly just align everyone on the objective for today's discussion. So really, for those who've joined and for those who'll be tuning in later, our objective is to just gain insights into, what does it take to become a lawyer? Why even become a lawyer, right? Like, what's the day-to-day? What makes it rewarding? What makes it challenging? What are some of the future trends? Obviously, there is a lot of talk of AI and machine learning. To what extent can that be leveraged in this type of industry? And so that's really the objective. And so with the Q&A, which we'll just kind of kick off, and this is really for everyone here, what's your typical workday like and the responsibilities that you handle as a lawyer? And maybe we can kind of go around the room. So maybe we can do Molly, Doris, Emily, or Molly, Doris, Emily. Yeah, that actually would be really helpful too. And then Stephen.
Sure, I can kick it off. So I don't really have a typical workday, which is one of the things I love most about my job. My days really vary depending on which of my cases are busy at that time and where those cases are in their life cycle. I would say most days I work on more than one case. These days I could work on 5, 6, 7 cases in one day because they all have deadlines and need to keep moving. But this work could involve anything from working with a client to figure out how we're going to respond to an SEC subpoena. So maybe I'm talking to the client, walking through the subpoena, brainstorming how we'll respond. I could be on the phone with opposing counsel, talking through discovery requests, negotiating the limits of discovery in a case. I could be preparing a presentation for a board meeting where we want to update the board on the status of major litigation that the company is facing. Sometimes I have to meet with insurers where the insurance policy is covering the litigation costs and prepare a budget so that they know what's coming down the pike. Some days I might be defending a deposition for the entire day, or I could be preparing for an oral argument or giving an oral argument in court, or on the rare days when I'm in a trial, like with Steve, of course, that's your whole day and night and week and month and year in that particular case. So it's very different, but it's all very engaging and busy and juggling a lot of deadlines.
Wow. That's what I love about that is like it's very dynamic and there's a lot like it almost seems like no day is like the other.
Exactly.
Really neat. Okay, Doris, how about you?
Exactly like what Molly said, no 2 days are alike. But in any given day, so let me just back up a bit. When you are in-house, your client is the company. So for me, my clients are the various departments that might need a contract or other advising. Since my previous, I'll talk about my previous company where I spent 4 years there. They're an oncology company, so they have 3 products in clinical trials, and the biggest chunk of my day was spent spent on clinical trial agreements, which are these are sites where they will have patients for clinical trials, and so we need contracts with them. I basically my role is I was corporate counsel for transactions, which means transactions means contracts, and a contract is like a promise that you put in writing. So yeah, my days could be, were spent mostly on clinical trial agreements, but I also help support our scientists, and sometimes they need collaboration agreements with another company or another institution, or our facilities department might need someone to come in and change light bulbs. So I have or work on a master service agreement with that vendor. Sometimes the scientists need to bring in an expert. So, that's when I work on a consulting agreement. So as you can see, it's many types of agreements. And also sometimes like I help out our human resources department on like employment matters or, recruiting. So yeah, at any given at any given company, you have many needs. So you're kind of like, it's kind of like going to when you go to see a doctor, and it's a general doctor. The doctor knows a lot about knows how to handle most things like on the surface and a little bit deeper. But sometimes you need an expert, and I might not have that expertise, so that's when I go to outside counsel. So I would go to an outside law firm where I might find an attorney that has more expertise. So, but yeah, when you're in-house, you're kind of like the general practitioner. However, in-house, any corporation, they could hire different types of lawyers for that may specialize in different things. So sometimes so like I was at a small startup, and so that's why I kind of had my hands in everything. But as companies get bigger, they need more and more expertise, and they have where they need lawyers to specialize. So they might end up hiring a lawyer who does employment, and lawyer who does litigation, a lawyer who does patents, etc. So I hope that gives a little better picture of what an in-house attorney does.
That was awesome. So I think what we learned there was so you're working and you represent the interests of the corporation or the company, right? Where you're employed. Similar to Molly, it's almost like no day is like the other. And also similar to Molly too, like you are handling a variety of, be it transactions or corporate legal matters that may just be very different and or disparate. Which is, so this actually sounds like a very like dynamic role and a dynamic profession, which is neat. So now let's go to the recruiting side. So Emily, from your perspective, like what is your typical workday like as it relates to recruiting future lawyers.
Yes. So I could even just talk about the last 2 days. I was actually at Berkeley Law School yesterday. We were speaking with the Career Center and really just having an open conversation about how to their timeline for recruiting, what they're doing to educate their students, how we're trying to do the same. For example, the differences between transaction and litigation, because a lot of students come into law school and they don't know a lot of those differences. So that's a part of what you're learning in law school is not just constitutional law, but okay, what is the contracts that Doris was talking about, or a discovery that Molly had mentioned. So I think as part of recruiting, there's this educational piece that we're trying to do on campus. For example, we're actually, I have a few of my partners coming on one of the campuses. We're doing a presentation called the Business Lawyer's Toolkit, Essential Skills for Success in Corporate Law. So our partners will be talking about their experience. And so similar to what we're doing now, except for at the law school.
That's wow. That's really helpful, actually. And yeah, it's like, it's super helpful to know that like those are the conversations that are happening at the law school level too. Awesome. So now to round us out, so Stephen, what is your day typically like?
It would be much more closely tied to what Molly was describing. I mean, it's really case dependent and project specific. Whatever happens to be the focus at that time, you know, at some periods of time when I'm not in court, you know, I may be on the phone or on Zoom calls with clients quite a bit. Other times I may be reviewing evidence or documents to respond to the DOJ or the SEC. And at other times, or maybe spending most of my time in court. It's all over the place. You know, when I was a federal prosecutor, you know, the beauty of that job is you're in court all the time. Like you live in court basically. And that's why a lot of people do the job, because you get experience that you really can't get anywhere else. Whereas when you're on the private side at a firm, some of them are rarely in court and never do trials. It just really depends, you know. So, but for me, it's really all over the case, project specific.
And you said, so what is it about being in court that you really enjoy?
I always enjoyed the performative aspect to it. You know, it's a show, but not really a show. But you know, you're on the spot, and you have to think quickly. You have to be prepared. You need to be well spoken. It's, you know, I've always found it a lot of fun, and that's kind of why I went into the law. I liked debate. I like those sorts of things when I was young, and it just seemed like the best path for me.
Super helpful. So thank you all for sharing that insight. So let's maybe like transition a little bit into, so Emily, I'm going to ask you this question, given your experience. What are some essential skills or qualities that employers look for?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're really looking, we're looking for initiative. We're looking for someone who's going to come to the events, come up to me, introduce themselves, shake my hand, follow up with an email, and ask to speak with maybe another associate or someone else in a practice area they're interested in. So we want to see someone who's interested, who's curious, who wants to learn more. I will say, I think it's really important, and we're finding now with recruiting maybe happening, you know, sooner and sooner in law school, that having that work experience between undergrad and law school is really beneficial. It's not mandated by any means, but it is beneficial to have some of that work experience in between. If it's, you know, doing a clerkship or judicial clerkship, which is it's working with the judges at various courts. Also, even working at a corporation, maybe in a different job function, that's completely okay too. But those are some that we look for.
Super helpful. Anybody else? Okay. Let's go to the next question. So this is maybe for Yeah. So Molly, let's maybe have you ask this question, or let's have you answer this question. What was it about law that inspired you to pursue a career in law, and how did you choose like the specific legal path?
So I participated in mock trial in high school. I think probably just because a lot of my friends were doing it at first. But I really loved it. And we went to state finals my senior year. We did not become state champions, but we were very close. And that was a really fun experience. I enjoyed it. I thought I was good at it. I enjoyed the performative aspect that Steve was talking about. It was really engaging, and it can be a little addictive, I think, the performative aspect of litigating. But I was also a really serious pianist. So I ended up going to college for music. I majored in music and played piano professionally after college. But I found that that wasn't really intellectually stimulating for me and a bit repetitive, and the lifestyle wasn't necessarily for me. And I found myself in my spare time and downtime sort of reading about legal issues and legal adjacent issues. And because of my mock trial experience, I had thought about going to law school previously. So after a few years of working as a professional musician, I decided to pivot back to law school. How I chose my specific legal path, I participated in the summer program that Emily runs at her firm that she was talking about. And I was lucky enough to land at a great firm. My summer, I was a summer associate at Ropes and Gray in their Boston office, and really enjoyed that experience, and started working there after law school. And then in the beginning, you can basically get assigned to matters and told what you need to be working on. But once I figured out which of those matters I enjoyed, I started asking for more of that type of work. And that's how I've ended up doing securities litigation since then.
So now I've got so many questions as your neighbor about the piano aspect. Wait, so what was that I have to ask again. So like what was that transition like going from like being a professional pianist to like now a lawyer?
Well, I just started with studying for the LSAT, right? And I just took it one step at a time. So I didn't hate studying for the LSAT, so I took the LSAT. I didn't hate taking the LSAT, and I didn't get a horrible score on the LSAT, so I applied to law school. I got into a law school that I wanted to go to, so I went. I worked for a legislator during the day and went to law school at night. And I liked both of those things. So I just kind of took things one step at a time. And since I was lucky enough to continue to enjoy the transition, I think.
That is such a cool story. Thank you for sharing that. Now, Doris, I'm going to switch to you for a little bit. So, this is a tricky one. So, like, what are some misconceptions about working in law, and what do you wish more people understood about your profession? I think one thing that we've nailed home is it's a very dynamic job, but what else?
So when I was in high school and most of college, I never thought I would go to law school because, sorry, everybody who does litigation, I did not want to do litigation. I hated public speaking. I did not like arguing. I couldn't see myself doing the performative part, no way. But I actually had a friend. So I pivoted I was actually pre-med in undergrad. And I had a friend who graduated early and went to law school. And she said, she reported back, they really need science majors. You could go into patent law. It's very lucrative. And you tell any college student the word lucrative, that's tell me more. So I thought, okay, well, that sounds really interesting. Let me look into it. And I kind of took a leap of faith, applied to law school. However, I did work in biotech for 2 years in between college and law school. But yeah, did take a leap of faith. I went to Santa Clara, and it's still like on day one, I was like, I don't know if this is for me, but it's just learning how to think like a lawyer is very empowering. So that alone, I didn't realize that I thought I would just be going to law school and just memorizing a bunch of rules and regulations. And, I actually honestly didn't know what to expect. But the way law school is taught, they teach you how to think, and they teach you how to analyze things, how to see and analyze both sides of the coin, or maybe, three sides of the coin, or more. Um, I wasn't expecting that, and I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. Now I have friends who have graduated, and they specialize in things. For example, so it's the usual fields. There's corporate law, there's finance, there the ones that you usually hear about. The ones that what you don't realize is there are lawyers needed in every single industry. So like entertainment, and you can even go even finer within entertainment, music, movies. And in this country, we're a very litigious country. So lawyers are pretty much needed everywhere.
Okay, so now let's go to another sticky question. So Stephen, this is for you. What are some of the biggest challenges lawyers face, both in terms of workload and ethical dilemmas?
With respect to workload, again, that's really going to be industry specific or practice specific, because what I may encounter is going to be very different than what Doris is going to encounter and be challenged with. Basically being in-house counsel for everything. For me, the workload issue, again, it's very project specific, and when you're a litigator or trial lawyer, deadlines, and when you are successful and have lots of clients, it can really become almost overwhelming, the number of deadlines you have, projects you need to get completed, and so that's something that can be really, really difficult on your home life, on your career, on your mental health, because of your ethical obligations to your clients, and particularly in my case, when I'm talking about white collar civil and criminal defense, people whose lives and freedom may be at risk. That comes first. It comes before your personal life, and anything else you may have to do. So that can be difficult sometimes. I mean, you learn how to deal with the time management issues, but when you're in a large project, a large trial, the trial is everything. So that can be a challenge that you have. With respect to ethical issues, lawyers run across these all the time, because you have a client who you're supposed to serve, whether it's a company or an individual, and they may want to do certain things that you cannot do or you should not do, or that might look poorly upon the client, the company, to its investors or shareholders. So dealing with client management in an ethical way is a challenge. And then also just conflicts of interest. You've got to abide by those. And like, for example, when I was a federal prosecutor, not really relevant in a lot of ways, but I used to play in these lawyers leagues, and I played with a large law firm here in Southern California's team, who paid the bills for the league. So I was basically a free rider, playing for these guys. And then eventually that firm was representing witnesses in a large case I had, not in Southern California, but members of that firm on the East Coast, I think, were representing witnesses in. This was during the financial crisis, the Countrywide scandal. I was one of the prosecutors investigating it, and the law firm who I played basketball with was representing some of the employees of Countrywide in another city. So all of a sudden, basically, I had to either quit my team or pay the fees myself, which, as a federal prosecutor, you don't really make that much money. So I had to literally quit my basketball league, because, again, the possible appearance of a conflict, basically my basketball league being paid by a law firm who was involved in a case I was investigating. So, things like that come up, and I'm sure there are different examples for someone like Doris or others in a different field.
Wow, that is a really that's a great story. Did you join the basketball league again after this was all done?
Nope, I retired. That was it. That's the one thing you'll talk. I think we're going to eventually talk about compensation and those sorts of things. But when you are a federal prosecutor, it's considered prestigious, so they can get away with not paying you very much.
Awesome. Okay, so now let's kind of go around the room, and I'm going to tag Molly, Doris, and Emily. What advice would you give to students considering law school? Second question is are there specific undergraduate paths or experiences that would be most beneficial? So Molly, you go first.
Sure. Advice for students considering law school. I wish that I had spent time with lawyers before I went to law school. I think it can be really beneficial ideally, if you can, shadow a lawyer, intern with a lawyer, if someone will let you tag along. Well, first of all, courtrooms are open to the public. Go and watch what lawyers do in court. But that's not just all they do all the time, as we've been discussing. So I think it's really valuable to really internalize what your day-to-day will look like if you want to be a lawyer, because going to law school and the day-to-day lived experience of being a lawyer are very different in my experience. And you can enjoy both things for different reasons, but I think it's important to make sure that you, to the best of your ability, can identify whether you're really interested in the day-to-day work and if it would fit with your personality, skill set, lifestyle, at least at this point. Of course, we all change, but the more information you can get about what it will look like on the other side of law school, I think is the most valuable thing to do. In terms of undergrad experiences that would be beneficial, not mine, I will say. I've not one day have I used my music degree as a lawyer. I wish that I had more experience in economics, finance, and psychology. I think that I would be curious for Emily's answer to this question, but I think any of those majors or classes or focuses can really help in the work that at least that I do.
I love that answer. That was incredibly well said. So Emily, what do you think?
So I think this kind of goes back to my earlier comment of, making sure like you are really interested by, for example, we hire interns on our talent team, and those interns have gone on to law school, or they may be, in between undergrad and law school. And to get an inside look on the talent acquisition is always fantastic. We have one of my colleagues is an assistant to 3 partners, and he is 2 years out of undergrad and considering law school. So having, I think, that real firm experience is just so important. Another couple other things, and Molly, I think there's so much writing that's involved and such a keen eye for detail. Attorneys have to have an eye for detail. So I think if you're someone who is naturally keen on details, it could be a very good fit for you. I also think someone who is very interested in writing, especially on the litigation side, you're going to be researching and writing, and you want to feel, you don't want to be the person who hates writing research papers. I think that would be, I think those are a couple different angles.
That's super helpful. That was like very like specific guidance. Doris.
Yeah. Advice for high schoolers. Well, follow your passion. And, unlike pre-med where you have to take, there are prerequisite classes, you have to take all the science classes, all the chemistry classes. In law school, to get into law school, there as far as I know, there are no prerequisite classes. You just have to take the LSAT and, you know, get decent grades. So, which opens you up to majoring in just about anything. You know, so long as you have a compelling reason to go to law school, you know, that you can write about in your essay. You know, previously when I touched on, you know, the different kinds of law that that are out there, that kind of, you know, following your passion kind of, you know, goes to that. You like sports, there's sports law. You like wine. You guys are too young for that, but you know, maybe someday you will. There's wine law. You know, there's you know, you like music, you can go into entertainment law. You can really, you know, go explore, take many classes, you know, as many classes as you can. I have to say the class that turned me on to, you know, even thinking about law was a sociology class where, you know, we just learned about like, you know, I learned about the inequities between like, you know, what men and women were paid. And, you know, I thought, well, you know, that's not fair. And you know that really got me thinking, you know, about equity and you know, about public policy. And you know, you realize if you go into a career in law, you can have a really huge impact on policy, whether it's on a smaller scale, you know, just like within your company, or on a larger scale if you know, if say you work for the government. So yeah, you know, I follow your passion, and something that's maybe indirectly may or may not get you into law school is traveling. Go out and see the world, get a different perspective. When you go out of the country, it makes you see, you know, our country in a different light, which, you know, I feel, you know, makes you, when you learn about our laws, you know, you know, compared to, you know, the laws of the country where you visited, you know, you definitely see things in a different light, and it, you know, gives you just, you know, a broader perspective of, you know, and just a bigger picture of our laws, you know, for better or for worse.
I like that. So just to kind of quickly round that out. So one, I think Doris, like perhaps like the biggest message that I got from that was empathy, right? Like understand how different cultures operate and what makes them unique, and just how different people think, right? Regardless of whether you're in corporate or litigation, it's helpful to kind of understand like the perspective of the other side of the table. And then I think, Emily, you provided some really helpful feedback or guidance on like what are some of the specific um, attributes that a lawyer would kind of not so much need, but would benefit from having, right, to be successful. Attention to detail, which I do not have, is definitely one of them. And then Molly, I think like your story is incredibly like it's so helpful, because what it really kind of drives home is you don't really have to be a political science major to go into law, right? You can actually go into law from like a variety of different angles. You can be a music major and go into law. And Doris, to kind of feed off of what you mentioned, really what it takes is, I think, curiosity and like an innate, I'd say, desire to change things, and of course the LSAT. And we do have a number of students, by the way, who are interested in law, and the reason, but or perhaps like the motivation behind their interest, the impetus behind the interest, is they want to affect change, either socioeconomic disparities or things like labor relations. Actually are, like, interestingly enough, like that's become like a very common interest area for a lot of our students. So awesome. Okay. Maybe this is one for, I don't think we've hit on this one yet. Emily, we may call you up on this one. So, how would you describe the differences in work-life balance between corporate law, litigation, and other areas of legal practice, to the extent that you happen to know? And then, Doris, you can also kind of fill in some of the gaps.
So this work-life balance question gets asked often. I work in big law, so there are high demands. It really is a client service excellent is what we say. So our attorneys are working for their client and providing such a high level, a high standard of excellence. I would say the way I have heard it from many of our attorneys, litigation, you're able to plan out a little more, and maybe Stephen and Molly have some insight. So you're able to perhaps, you have deadlines set and you know that there's going to be an end date and you can take your vacation at that end date. So a little bit more balance there. Our corporate attorneys that are working on mergers and acquisitions, big transactional deals, they're very busy at the year end. But they have great partners across the board. And, when they have the 2 weeks off, they plan that, and they all, they don't plan time off at the same time. They work together on that. But it's a little bit more of a really, really busy time and then a slow time. And I'll quote one of the partners. She said, during the slower time, I take a nap, and that's what she does. So kind of riding that wave a little bit more. So those are some of the differences that's been described to me.
That's awesome. And actually, when I was an investment banker, we would call that time being on the beach, even though we were still in the office. So how about you, Doris?
Yeah. From the big law perspective, when you work in a law firm, it sounds like you've got, sprints and then sprints and rests. Really, it's mostly sprints. From in-house, it's more of a marathon. And by that, I mean, it's more steady. There's usually a steady workflow. It does come in waves depending on projects that, or sometimes fires that you need to put out. It's and it also depends on whether you work in a big company where you have lots of different lawyers who can take over for you, or if you're at a small company. This goes for any startup, where you're the sole service provider, and if you go on vacation, it's very hard for everybody else because nobody else can do the job. So it's steady. Work-life balance. I knew that I wanted to be in-house and only in-house, because it is more of a more of a 9-to-5 job. Although the more senior you get, it's becomes more like 9 to 6, 9 to 7 sometimes. And during the pandemic, I definitely brought my work back. But I don't have crazy hours like what my friends in litigation have. And I just knew that that's what I wanted for myself. Usually the pay for in-house is a little less, and less than when you start off at a law firm. And I was okay with that. I wanted more of a more. I didn't want litigation hours. And I'm by no means throwing you guys under the bus. It's just not for me, but for my friends who do it, it is so super exciting for them, and they thrive on it. I just wanted more of a steady pace. So that's the, if I can provide any difference between a law firm, from what I know, which isn't very much, and in-house. That's the lifestyle.
That's super helpful. So what I'm hearing is like sprints, right? So like ups and downs versus like more of like a consistent, almost predictable like schedule, but that does not, however, come at the expense of predictability with like work type, right? Because like at the very start we mentioned, like it seems like across like everyone here, like no 2 days are the same. You are handling different tasks, different challenges, and that's what makes it really fun. So we got time for one more question. I think this is a big one. So Doris and Stephen. Stephen first. Can you talk about the financial realities of a career in law? How do salary expectations vary across legal fields, especially at different stages in a career? And we now know part of, I think, the expectation, or like something to consider, is you might have to give up your seat or your role on a basketball team.
Yeah. So, To speak about kind of the financials of the practice, you really got to slice and dice up basically in what sector you are to get some sense of I guess compensation expectations. Because if you're in the public sector, if you're a district attorney, a public defender, or working in city or county government as an attorney, um, you're going to make a good living in whatever city you're in, but you're not going to get rich doing that. You just don't. That they're public sector jobs. Federal prosecutors, for example, are some of the lowest paid lawyers anywhere. DAs make more, pretty much, again, because the federal government can get away with not paying them very much. Um, Versus, if you're in a big city doing corporate or litigation at a medium or large firm, look, you can make a lot of money. um, but you have to understand that that money comes with a cost, and the cost is your time, basically. So, yes, you can make a very good living um, in the private sector, but you work for it. Nothing's free, unfortunately. The higher the salaries, typically the more hours you're going to be working. It's just the way it works. And I don't know really have much insight into in-house attorneys, corporate attorneys with companies, as opposed to corporate transactional attorneys at a big law firm. But as I understand it, in-house typically make less than, for example, big law lawyers. But they also have other compensation, stock options that can be very lucrative in the long term, things like that. So, the compensation is really all over the map in my experience.
Great. Doris?
Um, Everything Steven said, I completely, yeah, mirroring that. It's if going to the public sector, you definitely don't make as much as if you're in the private sector. If you go with a startup, depends on how much funding they have versus a company that's been around, and is pretty well established. From what I know, starting when you're a new lawyer, working in-house is definitely less than working at a law firm. But as you get more and more senior in both, like Steven said, you do get paid more because you know more, but you're also expected to deliver more. So you pay, and so you pay for that with your time. I like right now, I'm 12 years in, I'm compensated pretty well, and I'm pretty happy. I don't know where I would be if I don't know how the pay would compare if I were at a law firm, but I would imagine more, because if you say you reach partner level, there's the money that there's the money that you drum the work that you drum up from the clients that you make, and whatever bonuses that may come, and in-house lawyers just don't have those kinds of bonuses, but sometimes the company itself, the company will give you a bonus. And like Stephen mentioned, there's also equity if you happen to be at a company that is that's on the up and up, and you can benefit from that.
Awesome. Awesome. So that was actually all of our questions, and it's like almost 8 p.m. on the dot, which is phenomenal. I'm just going to quickly open. Is there any one question from the audience? I'm going to give it 30 seconds. And then actually, as we wait for one question, I just want to say thank you again. This has been such a fantastic panel. I've learned a lot. I'm sure our students have learned a lot. And then maybe as we wait for one question, if there is any, if you were to all kind of go around the room and I don't know, just say one last thing to our students, what would you say? Let's do Molly, Doris, Emily, Stephen.
I think being a lawyer is a great career, and I think most of what we hear is negative about lawyers. And I wish that people are more positive about the profession, because I feel very fortunate to have the job that I do and enjoy it as much as I do. So don't listen to the naysayers.
Awesome. Doris?
I love what I do. You know, having gone through law school, I see everyday issues, politics, the news. I see it differently. I see it from a different lens. Things are not so black and white, and I love thinking about that. And really, just I know how to critically analyze things after having gone through law school.
Awesome. Emily?
I would say be curious and keep asking questions. Like Molly said, I mean, I think there's so many great things about being an attorney, and there's so many different career paths, like Doris had mentioned earlier, and different backgrounds. You can go from big law to in-house. I mean, there's so much you can do. So be open, be curious.
Awesome, Stephen. And we actually have one question. So for those who can stay on and answer this question, go ahead. But Stephen, go for it.
I'm not sure I have anything to add to the wonderful words already spoken, but I mean, I would agree. Be open, be curious, be open-minded to things. I always think, well, I had my mind set that I wanted to be a litigator, a trial lawyer pretty early on. But I also think, I know I have friends, colleagues who are corporate lawyers, actually love their work, do transactional work, whether it's at large law firms or smaller type firms. I mean, they seem to really enjoy it as well. So I just think it's be open-minded, because you never know where this kind of career can take you. And if you preset expectations and only follow what you want to do when you're 24, 25, not that some people don't have a really good sense, but you never know what could be in the career for you if you keep an open mind.
Awesome. So we've got one question. So for anyone who can answer this, please do. I recognize we're past 8, so if you gotta hop, all good. Question's a great one. What is your favorite memory from your law career, be it a case or a trial?
I can go. It's actually from law school. I was in my contracts professor was notorious for making people cry. His name was Father Goda. I went to Santa Clara University as a Jesuit school, so he was a father. And I think he softened up in his old age. He didn't make anybody cry in our class, but he was known for just peppering you with questions. And you knew every day who was assigned what case. And so when it was my turn, I prepared and read and I read the case. I read like all of the like the law school version of Cliff Notes. And it's just I just had to know the case in and out, because I knew that he would ask these insanely hard questions, and he did. And he basically I spent 40 minutes. He was just hammering me with questions, and for 40 minutes, and I was able to answer most of them. And for the ones where I wasn't sure, the way you answer something when you don't know is, oh, that's a really good question, which buys you a little bit more time, and then you formulate an educated answer. And as soon as he was done with me, the next guy, after in the alphabet, after he was only on for 10 minutes, and then he was done. So but yeah, I was pretty proud of myself for just preparing and over preparing for that, and that really helped me really just prepare for anything. Like I know when I have hard days, I go, okay, well, I got through that day with Father Goda. I can pretty much get through anything.
That's awesome. I feel the same way when it comes to like getting my kids ready in the morning. They're all sick. If I can get through this, I can get through anything. So, anything on the litigation side, Molly or Stephen, if you feel comfortable sharing?
Sure. This was another shared client with Steve, but one of our pro bono clients was in prison with for life without the possibility of parole, and we've been trying for years and years and years to get him released, and unsuccessfully for years and unsuccessfully for years, and finally, after sort of a new tack, he was released that day. We got an email from the judge with the order, and he actually was let out of prison that day, and in time for his daughter's wedding, and he's now at home with his family, and never thought that he would ever leave prison or see the light of day again. So that was a big one.
Holy cow. That's fantastic. And I think we're just going to end the conversation. Actually, I don't know why there's like a thumbs up on my screen. But anything else to add? Otherwise, like that's like almost like a mic drop kind of a end. Cool. Okay. So everyone, thank you so much for joining. Molly, Doris, Emily, Stephen. Thank you especially for investing so much time in this with us. Yeah, I could not be more grateful, and I'm sure our students will really appreciate it. So with that, have a good night, and I wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving because we are in that season now. So with that, bye.
Thanks, Sunny.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck, high schoolers.